If you're ready to hit the track in the iRacing Ford FR500S Mustang, then sign up for the Barber Ford Mustang Club today. With great prizes from our awesome sponsors, this league is fast, fun, and best of all, free to race in. Take on 6 races of wheel-to-wheel action, all broadcasted live on Pit Stop TV. As a member, you will receive a $500 voucher to Barber Ford, plus entry into a raffle for a brand new Fanatec H-pattern shifter. Every point you earn on the track is 1 entry into the raffle, meaning you can race your way into a brand new Fanatec shifter drawn on December 15th. Battle your competitors at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Watkins Glen, Road Atlanta, Barber Motorsports Park, Brands Hatch, and for the finale, Lime Rock Park. Join the Barber Ford Mustang Club at League ID 33.
Stock car racing in Japan is no new concept, neither is racing at Tsukuba Circuit or with street stocks. What isn't such a mundane idea, however, is mixing Tsukuba with those street stocks and going racing in an organized format. We're doing just that this evening with Lucky Motorsports Solutions and Elevated Performance. This is round number 5 of 16 in the Lucky Motorsports Solutions street stocks. Welcome to Pit Stop TV and the virtual Tsukuba circuit in Japan. This is a really special track for us to be at this evening, a free track to all iRacing members, and a more recent addition in, I think about 3 years ago. It really has only been on iRacing for a short time. My name is Andrew Cardone IV, and it's a pleasure to join you for coverage of Lucky Motorsports Street Stocks by Elevated Performance. Tonight's coverage is brought to you by Elevated Performance, Lucky Motorsports Solutions, Whiplash Cams, and CC's Business. And boy, what some beautiful pictures we've got coming to you around the track at Tsukuba Circuit. It is going to be a grand day in terms of iRacing days, if you will. You can take a look at the beautiful sunny day above the virtual Tsukuba Circuit. Let's take a look here at the track map in just one moment. As I mentioned, round number 5 of the season. More quickly, well, we've slowly gotten this season on. We'll talk about the schedule in a moment, but we are advancing through and things are going to pick up here over the winter of 2023 into 2024. A quick look at our track map. We are running on the full layout. Now, that was not always going to be the case. We were initially going to take the cut through from turn 6 straight onto the backstretch. That has changed, and now you can see the full course is in use. And realistically, there are only a handful of corners that you need to know about in this race. Turn 1, Turn 4, Turn 5, Turn 6, Turn 8, and Turn 9. I realize now that sounds like more than initially. However, that's still 6 corners. You can basically toss out 2, 3, and 7. They just aren't that impactful, at least as far as calling out corner names, or, well, not names, but numbers. It really comes down to those really 3 hairpins, a couple of bends. And that gets you around a lap here at Tsukuba Circuit. There is a street stock world record for this car at this track. There is a world record. It is set by Rudy Valentine out of New Jersey, a 101.754. I can tell you in practice, we've already crushed that. Michael Melvin, Zach Shunker, Ricky Wall are all faster than that time. And I was faster in our practice race that we did here. Practice session we did after the practice race last week on the other format, or other layout, had a 101.0. And I think we might see Melvin and some others get close to that. Melvin has a great setup for this racetrack, and I think we're going to see some drivers get very, very close to that world record lap time. Point standings coming into this round. Tim George has the lead, but only by 2 points, and we have enabled those 2 drop weeks. These drivers will be able to lean on the rest of the season. Tim George up by 2, David Levine down by 2, then it's Shucker 14 back, Sean O'Hara 16 back, Langenberg 17 back, Melvin now in the top 10, you've got Scott Myers hanging on to the top 10, Jordan Miller, Joey Tackett. A lot has changed and everybody is much closer together as we take this outlook on week number 5. I mentioned the schedule. Let's talk about that schedule. Here we go. That's the right schedule. This has been slightly adapted now to show the full layout here at Tsukuba. It's only week number 5. We've kind of had a slow going month and a half to get us going, a month and a week, if you will. But from here on out, after a couple of off weeks, we should get moving much more quickly, at least until the holiday break for Christmas and New Year's. Then we come back in January, and again, things get rolling pretty nicely from there as we head to tracks like Five Flags, Daytona, Wilkesboro even, on the far side of the new year. It's all ovals after this, and then we get a couple of road courses early in January just to mix things up at Texas and Daytona. That said, qualifying is on track, practice has completely wrapped up, and drivers are trying to figure out where they're going to be starting this race. Again, the 5th race of 16. A quick check of weather conditions, by the way. 68.9 degrees in the air, uneven 100 on track. It is a hot day on the racetrack here in the virtual Tsukuba, Japan. Tsukuba, there we go. And there you see David Levine, race winner last time out at Bristol Motor Speedway, on track currently, trying to get a lap in. I wish these street stocks were a bit louder. They are a little bit quiet. Levine, third gear there, out of turn number 9, comes around and completes his first lap. Melvin goes straight to the top of the board. Levine will go second. Nice shallow entry there to turn 1, grab some curbing. That's not going to be a pretty lap for David. Meanwhile, Michael Melvin a little further up, but he's got a brand new paint scheme. How about that? Changing things up. Got the LMS logo there, the pit stop TV and elevator performance stickers, and Melvin has aborted that lap. He had a mishap there through turn 4. Quickly calls that done. Here's Zach Schucker, though. He's got a chance to go faster, and we had a practice race last week, 1 week ago, in fact. I took part in that just to see what these guys would be doing. Schucker won that race. It was myself, Michael Melvin, and Zach Schucker, I believe, starting in the top 3. Tim George was up there in qualifying. He ended up falling back, and I think we're going to see something similar in this race. He's going to be a little bit off today, but you're going to see those usual suspects, Melvin, Levine, Schucker, at least as far as the road course goes. They're going to be on top of things, and Schucker out of the final corner. Let's see if he goes faster here. I think he will pick up just a little bit. Is it good enough for pole? The answer is no. He will stay third place. Ricky Wall on track. He comes through turn number 4. He's got another shot here in qualifying. Tim George has used up his laps. Tyler Langenberg comes across the line, and he slows down on lap number 2. Sean O'Hara's got 1 lap to go. Traber Burns, newcomer to the series, has used up his laps already. Addison Cook also here this evening in car number 07. And Spiro Poulos, finally making a return to the series, has missed a couple of races, joins us this evening in that signature number 51. Ricky Wall out of the final corner. Let's see if he can go a little bit faster. Sliding the rear of the car there out of turn 9. Had a really good lap there. And he's going to pull off another 10th or so. It's not going to be for pole, but man, that was oh so close to having something, maybe going faster than Schucker in qualifying. And that would have been a very positive turn of things for Ricky Wall. His second start here in the series after debuting a couple of weeks ago at Bristol. Poulos off the track there. How about Addison Cook? He is through the mid portion of his second lap of qualifying. Here's an onboard. This from the perspective of the driver. And he's down, I think, in second gear there through that second hairpin. No, that was third. I think gearing will be an interesting conversation during this race. Addison, I don't think we'll get back around to complete this lap, but it was certainly worth a shot as qualifying comes to a close. Talk about gearing at this racetrack in particular, and there's some interesting points to make note of. Turn 1, that's definitely going to be a third gear corner. Turn 4, I think same thing, just to mitigate tire spin. I didn't want to write 4. Do that again. So we're going to have a 3. We're going to have a 3. Both third gear corners. Here at turn 5, third gear corner. Here at turn 8, you could do either. You could do 2 or you could do 3. And down here in turn 9, if you're going for pace, it's a third gear corner. If you're trying to keep the rear tires underneath you and later in the run, I think that's going to be a 4th gear corner as these guys try to mitigate that tire spin. It's a very hot racetrack, as I've already talked about. Very hot racetrack here at Tsukuba. Tire temps will be sky high. We are looking at a 25-minute race for these drivers as everybody makes their way to the grid. Let's take a look through our starting grid of 14 cars this evening. Michael Melvin on pole. And how about David Levine from the second spot, trying to back up that win last time out with maybe another here on the road course. Starting at third, you'll find car 48, Zach Schucker. Ricky Wall joins him there in the second row. 5th and 6th belong to Tim George and Tyler Langenberg on the grid. That's row number 3. Row number 4 goes to Sean O'Hara inside, Brian Miller outside, and to complete your top 10, Traber Burns and Addison Cook. Other notables throughout the field, Jack Gunsett, Kevin O'Hara, Mitchell Richtmeyer making his first start of the season, and Spiro Poulos filling out our field of 14. Oh, they've changed it. You know what? I like that better. So this was going to be a 25-minute race. David has apparently kept me on my toes and made it a 30-lap race. I like that a lot better. We'll work with that. So a 30-lap race, usual rules apply, no damage, at least damage healing enabled. We do have a choose cone zone, if you will, out of the final hairpin. We'll talk more about that later. But out of turn number 9, Michael Melvin will lead us to the green flag on our first road course of the season. We are green in Tsukuba. Side by side to turn 4 we go for 7th position. 6th and 7th. O'Hara outside. Ricky Wall misses the corner. 3 wide. O'Hara's going to loop it in the middle of the field. He crunches into a couple of cars. They're 3, they're 4 wide. Everybody trying to figure out where they need to go. And they sort things out now as we head up to turn number 8. Michael Melvin in the race lead, as you might expect. Right where he belongs. Shucker, though, going to get in the back of the 36 car and loosen Melvin up through that hairpin. Jack Gunsett falls back to last on this opening lap, but everybody in one tight line. That changes Poulos around out of turn number 8 as a side-by-side goes by, and out of turn number 9. The first lap of the race goes to Michael Melvin. Sean O'Hara falls well back in this field. Addison Cook now looks up to the inside, and these street stocks already are racing really, really aggressively on this road course. Tire temps, well, they're already getting the best of these guys. Cold tires, hot tires, doesn't matter. They're not going to be on the driver's sides. O'Hara and Cook with problems. Kevin O'Hara with problems. And I think what a lot of drivers have done is go for pace in their setups when some of them maybe are just going to have a little too much trouble with tire spin. It is really, really difficult. Even the best guys will make mistakes tonight. I really think for a 30-lap race, that's plenty of time on the racetrack. You want to go for stability. You don't want to go for pace necessarily. Sure, if you start in the top 3 or 4, maybe you keep those adjustments to go specifically for pace. But otherwise, I think maybe that focus needs to shift. Lap 2 complete. Michael Melvin fastest, and he has got it down to a 1:01.0. We did that in practice, and he couldn't quite figure out how I did it. Glad to see that the 36 car has caught up. I'm not going to let him live that one down. Zach Shucker, though, looking really good here on lap number 3, keeping the 59 car behind him. That's David Levine. All of these guys have a lot of road course racing experience on their resumes, not just in iRacing, but in the real world. Not so much at a street stock, not so much at Tsukuba, but at similar courses in similar cars. And Levine is in fact going down to second gear in turn number 8. That, I guess, tighter hairpin, more pronounced hairpin, then down into third gear here, kind of forcing it into third gear for turn 9. Shucker out wider. He's going to get a better run off the corner. And watch how shallow Levine will take turn number 1. Melvin doing the same. Really shallow entry. The track has a weird kind of plateau you got to come up over at that spot on entry, and if you shift the weight too much, you really are going to have a bad time. These guys, though, being very, very careful of that, as Melvin down on the apex curbing almost gets that car sideways. Shocker does the same on corner exit. Again, these guys are going to be all over. There's a lot of wheel spin. The rear of the car wants to slide around. It'll be a fun race to watch. Problems in the back. It looks like Langenberg, maybe? Tyler having some blinking issues. Kevin O'Hara, Mitchell Richtmeyer. This is a nice little fight for 11th position as they work through the mid portion of the lap. Jack Gunsett behind this 29 car. Richtmeyer ahead. Up in front, we've still got those 3 cars in a line. Call it 4 even. Tim George not so far back. But really, it is your top three at the moment. The 36, the 48, the 59. Tim's just a little far back for the moment, about second back of David Levine. So your top three within a second. George, another second back, and Langenberg really hanging back from there. Brian Miller back there as well. And these guys will get their usual opportunity to pit. Everybody has to make a pit stop in this race, or at least a tire change, and Levine sends it into turn number 8, nearly goes for a spin, just hangs on to that race car, and keeps it moving ahead of Tim George. But that was very nearly a race-deciding moment for Levine, possibly. He's only 2 points out of the point lead with drops. If he can capitalize here this evening, I don't know that it's necessarily going to give him the points lead, but it would help him for sure. And he is sliding into turn 1. He is sending it back on the throttle there. The problem with David and iRacing is calming him down. It's not an easy thing. You get a slidey car like this, he wants to push it and push it and push it. He does there at a turn 4 and opens the door for Tim George to go straight on by for third place. That's not what you want to do. If you're fighting the 00 for points, you don't want to be letting him by. Already on the lap number 6, these two, the closest fight on the racetrack, but they're not the only ones, as almost some contact there from Levine to George. Further back, how about Ricky Wall and Traber Burns? Burns, a newcomer to the series, but these guys getting very, very close to the mid portion of the lap. Burns very sideways there at turn 8, and Ricky Wall will have an opportunity maybe in this next lap or so to get up to that 202 car and find a way by. Getting up to the top end of 4th gear for Ricky Wall. We initially had set up the car for the short course, so a bit of a shorter back straightaway, and this is the longest straightaway. Actually, the front stretch is the longest straightaway on that format, on that config, that layout, and that has obviously changed, meaning these guys have to account for it or top out at the end of the backstretch in 4th gear. I think that's what a lot of these guys are opting for. It gives you a little bit better drive off, although you have to be careful of that. Of course, that's what these guys are battling, is too much drive off almost. The rear end trying to step out. Ricky Wall still trying to find a way by this 202 car. Ooh, Burns out to the grass. Here's turn number 8. And really nobody opting for the bumper yet this evening, aside from Zach Schucker earlier, I think on lap 1 or 2. That's about the only bumper-to-bumper contact I've seen, as Spiropoulos has towed to the pit lane. And while we want to see cars on the elevated performance pit lane at some point this evening, this is not where we want to see them this early in the race. So problems for car 51. Let's go back and take a look as to why Spiropoulos has taken his car to the garage. Riding back here in the 14th position of 14, and Traber Burns has had trouble live. This is Spiropoulos down the back stretch, and he just pulls off and I think calls it a day. Really not sure. Bizarre situation there for Spiro, but that gives us an opportunity to see what just happened to car number 202, Traber Burns. That is in turn 1? No, that is turn 1, I think. Yes, that's turn 1. It went for that slide, got hit by a couple of other cars, and that's how it happens for car 202. He has fallen back now to the 9th position. Ricky Wall moves on to 8th. And we've got ourselves a fight once again for 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th. This, the fight for 3rd and 4th. Levine back on George. Levine looking to the outside there of turn 5. And these guys, they're all in a Discord channel together. They're all having fun. 100% they're going to be talking to each other. They're going to be bantering a little bit. And I guarantee you, these two in particular are probably laughing about what they're doing on the racetrack. When they send those moves, they look around to the outside or the inside. Oh, big slide behind for Brian Miller. You know what? Props to Miller, though. He has shown up these last few races and had some trouble. Shows up here this week and has kept the car pretty clean. Jack Gunsit has come into the pit lane. And these guys do have to make the required tire change of some sort. What I didn't get clarification on from David is whether or not we're going to have the usual halfway break. If we hit lap 20, we know we're not going to have one. And these drivers have to make their own pit stop, which I think would add to a bit of strategy for sure. But time will tell as Melvin continues to send that car around every single corner. He really hangs it out more than anybody else. Side by side here, a third place. Down the backstretch, Levine gonna back out and slide back in behind the double aught. No attempt there for turn 9. Question is, if you're friends, all buddy-buddy in the chat, and you don't want to send one another too much, when are you gonna make that pass? Eventually, you've got to go ahead and I think use the bumper or the door at some point. You have really cool passing opportunities here at Tsukuba, but they're all pretty heavy braking zones, at least compared to what you would see at other points of the racetrack. Really not heavy braking zones, but comparatively, they're heavier braking zones. And they're hairpins. You've got 3 really good spots. Turn 1, turn 4, turn 8. What do you do in hairpins? You use the bumper. Here comes Michael Melvin. It looks like we're going to be relying on these guys to make their own pit stops tonight. That's an added little twist. Keeping things fun for sure. Here comes the LMS 36 to pit lane. Newly wrapped paint scheme as well. And Melvin will come on down to the very last pit stall and get service to his number 36 car. You do not have to take 4 tires. You can take 2 if you wish. Here comes Levine on this lap as well. You can take 2. Will Melvin opt for that? I don't think anybody is going to do 2 here. That would be a really weird mismatch. Brian Miller is in as well. And sure enough, Melvin goes for 4. Levine will go for 4. Brian Miller, I think, will be doing the same and going for 4. I can't imagine that anybody else or anybody would do anything else as Melvin heads back out on the racetrack, as does Levine. Miller goes up for his 4 tires. And eyes now turn to race leader Zach Shucker. He will come into the pit lane, it looks like this time, by a very tight pit entry lane. I'm not sure I'd be taking tires this early personally. I'd set myself up for the end of the race, but that's just me. Tim George going to come in as well. Langenberg, I think, is going to come in this time. He's blinking a little bit. No, he'll stay on the racetrack. So Tyler Langenberg will take over the race lead and slide through turn 1. Ricky Wall also keeps on going on this lap. He's not yet taken to the pit lane. Addison Cook will stay out. Mitchell Richtmeyer will find out down this backstretch whether he wants to pit this lap or continue on, and he will continue. After the pit stop, Zach Shucker has... Wow, he has gone for 2. Driver 48 has done something rather bold here, gone for 2 tires, and come out with the effective race lead. I'm surprised by that, very surprised by that. Tim George has not done so. He comes in for 4 tires, gets back onto the racetrack just behind David Levine by about 1.5 seconds. And let's see which 2 tires we want to bet that the 48 car took in his pit stop. It looks like he's taking his lefts. Makes sense. It's going to help him in turn 1. That's going to help him in turn 8, turn 9, turn 5 as well. That actually makes a lot of sense. If you're going to take 2, take the lefts. So effectively, your race leader is car 48 as we near halfway. Langenberg and Wall have not yet pitted. Shucker has. He's got 5.5 seconds back to Michael Melvin, and slow car on the course. That's Traber Burns that have turned number 8. Looks like he might have tangled with Kevin O'Hara. There is your race leader, Tyler Langenberg, just behind. And now Addison Cook gets passed up by the already pitted 59 of David Levine. Cook has not yet pitted. And Levine has really pulled away from the double lot of Tim George, struggling now as we come up to halfway, and caution. We will get the halfway break. David's just keeping us on our toes, keeping it fun. So there's your halfway break. That comes out a lap prior to halfway. And what that'll do is conserve racing laps after the caution. But what happened here to O'Hara and Burns? Burns comes up. O'Hara on the outside just comes left and hooks the 202 around. Wow. Look at it from our drones high above the racetrack. O'Hara misses the corner, comes up, and just comes back across the racetrack, hooks Traber. Now, thankfully, these guys have no damage, right? The damage repairs itself. Unfortunately, that's still going to largely affect Traber's race. He falls back now to the 12th position of 13 cars running, behind Kevin, and... Unfortunate. Now, before any other drivers make their way down to the elevated performance pit lane, it's worth taking stock of who has made the fastest four-tire stop thus far. And it looks like it's Traber Burns, actually, at a 19.8. So, drivers, that is the time to beat. 19.8 for Traber Burns. Next fastest so far goes to Timothy George, a 21.17. Now, it's important because there is one bonus point paid out to whatever driver has the fastest four-tire stop, and you can achieve that sometimes by taking a little bit less fuel. Cars in the pit lane including Ricky Wald, Tyler Langenberg, Addison Cook, pretty much whoever has not pitted yet, all visiting the elevated performance pit lane. To rise, you must elevate. Down and away goes Langenberg, goes Cook, and finally goes Wall, and Ricky just beats the 07 out of the pit lane. None of these drivers setting any kind of records for pit lane time. Although the second fastest now would be Addison Cook at a 21.13. Narrowly beating Tim George for second place at a 21.17. The fastest time so far still goes to Traber Burns at a 19.78. Now here's where things get fun. We are not yet coming to the green flag. However, when these guys exit turn number 8 next time around, I believe, they will have an option of whether they want to take the inside or the outside. They will have the opportunity to choose, and what that kind of looks like from this portion of the racetrack is basically any drivers who go down the left side. In fact, hang on. From where the camera is, if any drivers opt to take the left side of the racetrack, so drivers right, that is the inside. If any drivers like to take the right side of the racetrack, from our perspective, or drivers left, that is the outside. So inside, and just like in NASCAR racing and short track racing, these guys have the opportunity to choose where they want to line up. It's entirely up to them. They do not have to take a lane based on anything other than their own decision. Pace car lights have been extinguished, and we will go back racing this time by. Now, we tried this at Bristol. We had a few cautions. It was difficult to get right. We only have one caution here this evening, as iRacing does not throw cautions on road courses for cause. This caution comes out only as part of our halfway break that we do in every race, and gives us this opportunity to try this in a much more controlled format, a much more well-approached format than just kind of sneaking it into a high-banked short track race. I like this approach that we're taking this evening. The pretty clear choose inside or out, and there's a nice little seam in the middle of the racetrack as well. It's going to help these guys. You can see it here from our cameras. A really nice seam that helps you be able to tell where you need to be. So, into the choose. Who goes where? Chucker goes inside, Melvin outside. Levine decides inside. George outside. O'Hara inside. Miller outside, and finally, that's where things change. Traber Burns goes inside to follow Langenberg, and you see some drivers now filling the top. Ricky Wall goes up top. Addison Cook goes in. It didn't change much, but it did change where Traber Burns went. He opted for the inside of the racetrack. Ricky Wall going to move up from an effective 9th to 8th. We'll see if that changes much on this restart. Slow through turn 9, and there's the restart from Zach Shucker. We are back green at Tsukuba. Out of turn 1, Shucker a little bit loose, Melvin a little bit sideways as well. Everybody racing down to turn 4 with the utmost importance to win this race. A bump there from Melvin. He got into Shucker briefly, gets him again. Does not move that 48 though off the racing line. Miller kicks it out sideways. Everybody sorts out of turn 4 with brilliance, and now through 5 and 6. Who's going to get there in turn number 8? Melvin a little ways back. He's going to take a wider approach. Levine right down on the curbing. O'Hara follows. George in tow. And you got Miller. You got Ricky Wall through to 7th. I think that move helped him as a couple of cars go around and maybe burn some rubber in the final good hairpin passing opportunity. You can't really pass down here in turn 9. You've got to get it done a little bit earlier. One lap complete from the restart, 12 to go. And remember, you've got that mismatch of tires out front between your top 2. Zach Shucker has 2 tires on the left side of the car. Melvin has got all 4. High track temps today. We can recap the weather. 92 degrees. It has cooled down a little bit, but still rather high for Japan. And Michael Melvin now in pursuit. What can he do with Zach Shucker? Or can Zach Shucker finally win in this street stock? Further back, some really good battles going on through the rest of the field. George on O'Hara. This is good for the 4th and 5th positions. Ricky Wall just ahead of Tyler Langenberg. He's fallen a little ways back of Brian Miller. This is 6th, 7th, and 8th. Traber Burns ended up falling back to the 9th position. The most exciting battle, I think, for now is still going to be your top 2. Melvin right on the back end there on corner exit, but you've got to be there early. I don't think corner exit's going to be the place you're going to pass here at Tsukuba, but some other tracks I think you could. So little momentum to be kept up here as, Melvin right on the back end of the 48 there through turn number 4, and we've got them stacking up further back. Miller now with some pressure from the 88 car. Langenberg is there. And they'll go side by side to turn number 8, the leader single file, but they're racing for 6th. Ricky Wall down on the inside. Brilliant move. Goes on by and says goodbye to Brian Miller. Now Tyler Langenberg going to have an opportunity down here in turn 9. If you're already alongside, you've got a good chance of completing the pass. It's hard to initiate a pass, though, on this end of the racetrack. Langenberg with the advantage. Will he hold it just as Miller gets loose there out of turn 9? And Tim George on Sean O'Hara in the foreground. That's a good pass for car double aught. 10 laps to go. Miller falling out of the clutches now of Traber Burns. You see Addison Cook there in the distance. Kevin O'Hara and Mitchell Richtmeyer have fallen back. Richtmeyer has not yet made a pit stop. I don't think anybody communicated that to him, apparently. Melvin, this is about the closest he's been to turn 8 so far on Shucker. Does he go up the inside? No, he stays back. Shucker makes his own mistake. Contact. A little bit of good old-fashioned street stock racing. And think back to Bristol. Zach Shucker was not at all happy with the way that race went, which makes sense. He was leading coming to the last restart, got booted out of the way, lost at Bristol. However, it was Michael Melvin that was on his back bumper hitting him going into the restart zone that jacked up the 48 just enough to give us a good race for that win. Now it's 48 v 36. A little bit of contact there to turn 1, 9 laps to go. Melvin right down to the apex curbing. Levine misses the corner in the background. Turn 6, turn 7's just a bit of a continuation. And then back into the heavier braking zone of turn number 8. Oh, Melvin continues to kind of just peek into the mirror there. Contact on corner exit. He jacks up the 48 just enough to continue knocking on the door. Has not gone by, though. It's hard to pass at Tsukuba. It really is. There are not many good opportunities. That said, Shucker out wide. Melvin closes. Here comes car 36, maybe. They're all just shimmying out of the corner. Into the grass goes car 36 of Michael Melvin. Now back into turn 1. He's going to hit the 48. He's going to move him up and stay right behind him. Back on throttle. Stuck the rear end out a little bit. I'm stumbling over my words. This is too good. And there goes Shucker up the racetrack, cracking under pressure. Zach's got a really good opportunity, though. He's not far back. If he gets back to him in turn 8, this race is far from over. Not going to happen. And I think with the better tires in the 36 car all around, that's likely going to be the end of that battle. Further back, Jack Gunsit through the grass. Sean O'Hara losing a spot to Ricky Wall. That's now down the back stretch. And Tim George is starting to close in on David Levine as our leaders have sorted themselves out. Michael Melvin taking over in Japan and now driving away from Zach Shucker. I liked the move. If the race had continued green, I think Shucker was in a really good spot. But we have that halfway break. I think it was a really good gamble. It just wasn't meant to be. Tim George right to the back end of the 59 car, about a half car length back through the corner. That's not the only battle that's close. Ricky Wall, Sean O'Hara, that's still pretty close further back, 5th and 6th. And for a moment, it's like the calm before the storm. Everything calms right back down. 6 laps to go this time by. This is the view from 4th position. Timothy George looking up at David Levine, about a 4.5 gap across the line that time. And these guys are all still very close. One slip up out of any 4 of them, and the script completely flips. Especially if Zach can calm his tires back down, cool them back down. I don't think Melvin is gone just yet. I'm sure Melvin was holding back a little bit in that fight. Of course, we saw him take multiple opportunities to stay in behind the 48 car and not push. But I wouldn't doubt that his tires are pretty hot too. It'll be 5 laps to go this time by. If we revisit the point standings briefly as these guys run single file, you'll see kind of the picture of where things are at. Shucker, the top 3, could really use that race win, but Melvin, an extra 5 points back, could use it a little bit more. He's down there in 6th spot. He's got to get by Langenberg and O'Hara just to get to Shucker in the standings. And this race win, if he can hang on, would certainly help him out a ton. George and Levine, of course, they stay inseparable. And everybody else just kind of falls into place as you've got a battle brewing there in the background. 3rd place, George and Levine. George on the outside for turn 5, falls back. Gonna cross him up now, maybe look for the inside in turn 8. That's not gonna happen there. And no bump into turn number 8. George opts to stay back. They're inside of 5 to go. In fact, this time by, it'll be 4. I think Zach is just too far back at this point. Has those left side tires, and actually, truthfully, the imbalance of tires may actually help him in the right-hand quarter since he's got much better left sides. It's hard to say. I really don't know. I help free him up, help him rotate. I don't know. I didn't try it. That was a really bold move from Zach, and I really appreciate that he tried it. However, I'm not so sure that it's going to work out now as Levine finally gives up 3rd place to Tim George, and this is big for our points leader. Had a really off day at Bristol a couple of weeks ago, and going up to 3rd place here in this race would really help reverse that. Of course, you get those 2 drops, but the more good results you have, the better you're going to be regardless. Even if you have to drop a couple of good results. If you're dropping good results, that's a good thing. That means you're having only good results throughout the course of the season as we come around. 3 laps to go this time by. Also want to shout out Ricky Wall, P5 today. So close between these two. 3 laps to go as they get way out wide of the outside of the racetrack. George and Levine, 3rd and 4th. It is just kind of waiting. This is what you have to do sometimes in racing. Just kind of waiting on what these guys might be able to do. As David is all up on Tim George. I think we've got ourselves a good little fight here for 3rd. This is far from over here. Both of the battles in the top 4 are really, really good still. This one a little bit better, I'd say. As they work into the braking zone at turn number 8. I wonder how much David is privy to that points battle. How much he really worries about it at this point in the season. It's still early. This is week 5. Next up, though, we head out to Oxford, a completely different kind of racetrack from anything we've seen this season. The closest would be Langley for race number 3, and even Langley was very, very different from anything else we have on the schedule. Oxford, of course, doesn't have walls, but on the front stretch, you go over the mountain being the banking, and you're off in the sticks. Lap and a half to go. Zach Shucker pressuring Michael Melvin. Now, Melvin pressured Shucker into a mistake earlier. That came in turn number 4. And, of course, Shucker took left sides. That's a left-hand corner. So he had worse right sides on the outside of the corner. Ooh. Zach might have showed his hand a lap early there. If he did that a lap later and actually got to Melvin, that would have been a great bump and run attempt. One lap to go, this time brought to you by Whiplash Sim Cams. Slow out of the final corner is Kevin O'Hara in front of our 2 race leaders. Melvin down to the inside, Shucker gonna follow. Can he get to the back end of the 36 car? Not just yet. He's got a real good opportunity here at turn 4, but he has worse tires on the outside. One more good opportunity as they bunch up for 3rd. O'Hara on the outside, gonna bunch these 2 up. Tim George inside, Levine gets into him as they turn in for turn 5, and now final opportunity for Zach Shucker to try and get a win here at Tsukuba. Melvin throws it through turn 8 and just opens the door a little bit. Shucker can't get there, can't capitalize. I flipped back to the battle for 3rd and was mesmerized for a moment. One more last-ditch effort. Shucker up the inside, trying to get to the 36 car for the race win in Japan. It's not going to stick. Michael Melvin going to go to victory lane, and they crash. No cares in the world for car 36, though. Michael Melvin getting the race win. And he'll, of course, celebrate that one. Brian Miller comes on through, Addison Cook, Mitchell Richtmeyer will all finish this race. But a big win this evening for driver 36. Chucker got there, he got there, but couldn't get by Michael Melvin tonight. Question is, which personality are we going to get in the winner interview? We're going to get Sterling Melvin? We're going to get Melvin? We've got ourselves a Tokyo Drift session, it looks like, apparently, as Melvin spins it out in turn 8. Congratulations, driver 36, Crash. He's affectionately been called. Let's get a look back at what happened that last lap, that last corner, as Schucker tried to go for the race win. He nearly got there. This was the fight down the backstretch. Watch car 48 send it here to turn 9. I think Melvin saw it coming. Stayed out wide for a moment, let the 48 get there, but it wasn't enough. And out of turn 9, victory lane for the 36 car, finally in these Lucky Motorsports street stocks. And that was all she wrote for them across the start-finish line. Car 36 to victory lane in spectacular fashion. He now burns it down on the front stretch, as he so deserves. And we have a new race winner for the 3rd time this season. We'll go back and take a look at your unofficial race results when it's all said and done here at Tsukuba Circuit. Of course, Michael Melvin with the race win. Who finishes second? That's Zach Schucker by just over a 1/10 of a second. George hangs on for third. Levine for fourth. Ricky Wall, really, really good second start this season. He goes 5th place over John O'Hara and Tyler Langenberg, who end up a little ways back. Traber Burns, a nice run there. He ends up 8th. Brian Miller, Addison Cook hangs on for a top 10. Richtmeyer, O'Hara, Gunsit, Poulos, they all struggled on this road course, but they all, well, Richtmeyer, O'Hara, and Gunsit got to the finish line. Spiro Poulos, unfortunately, had to call it quits early on. The fastest pit stop of the race goes to Traber Burns, a time in the pit lane of 19.78 seconds. That will be reviewed since it is under 20 seconds, but the next fastest would be Addison Cook at a 21.13. That award, of course, brought to you by Elevated Performance. To rise, you must elevate. Elevating today, Michael Melvin, car 36, going to victory lane. Let's bring in today's race winner. He's been nicknamed Crash, but he didn't crash today. He goes to victory lane, and maybe a few crashes after the line, Melvin, but congratulations. Race 5 belongs to car 36.
Boy, I was just dead chuffed to win this one, man. I couldn't help myself. I had to drift as much as possible, and I have no idea how to do it.
I see we got Sterling Melvin here for the winner
Sterling
interview.
Melvin has made a return.
Yes. Well, hey, real talk, though. Really cool race between you and Zach Schucker. He took 2 tires at his stop, which was a lap later than you. You had the 4. When you came to the restart, though, did you expect this to play out the way it did? Did you feel like you might be able to get some separation? What were you planning from the restart at the end of the race?
Pretty much, I just wanted to pressure him. I knew he was going to take 2 tires when I went for 4 early, and just stayed on him until he overheated his tires, and then it was game over.
And clearly you saw a couple of moves coming there on the last couple of laps. He got to you a couple of times going for the race win. That's all fair and square in street stock racing especially. Was there a plan of how to deal with a couple of dive bomb attempts?
I pretty much anticipate the slide. Know he's going to hit me and just keep on sliding and roll right through it.
Well, congratulations, Melvin. 18 laps led out of 30. That doesn't tell the full story. I think dominance, as you would, by the way, crush the world record in a street stock at Tsukuba. I think you might even bested my time from practice a couple of nights ago. But Melvin, congratulations. Hopefully we're talking to you a lot more this season.
Well, that ain't half bad. Thanks, son.
Michael Melvin to victory lane. Kept a straight face last week, couldn't keep a straight face this week. Zach Shucker, though, goes P2 in car 48, and it was a very, very fun battle between you and Melvin there. Those last, 13, 14 laps after the halfway break. Zach, you took 2 tires at your pit stop, a really, really bold move. Did you test that at all? Was there any kind of premeditated move there?
I tested it last week. It worked pretty good for how my car was driving. I do think that Melvin had a better car in outright pace. I think I was a little bit more consistent than he was, which was kind of keeping me right there with him. But him having 4 tires versus my 2 made a little bit of a difference. I don't think that's what ultimately changed the outcome of the race, but it was a good race nonetheless from start to finish with him and even David and Tim there at the beginning. It was all pretty close.
Really good race through and through. I love the strategy difference, but does this maybe teach you a little bit for what to do to try and best Melvin when we get to the next road course at Texas in a few weeks? Or do you want to stick to your guns and still be trying something different? After all, you'll never beat somebody if you do the exact same thing they do, right?
I'm just going to kind of play it by ear. I mean, it's read, react, make your own decision, what you think's going to be best for you. I know from testing, Texas is not a good track for me. Tonight, I think, was a bit of a better track. I struggle with these cars on road courses. It's not my driving style with how they react, and I made some gains from last week's practice to tonight, did a couple setup tweaks, and it seemed to really help it. Melvin did the same, because I know me and him last week were kind of nose to tail, just like tonight. He was a little more stable tonight though, so I know he made some gains there. So all in all, it was good to see everybody in the group made gains from last week to this week that showed up for practice. So that was the positive to see.
And overall, I think it was a really good road course race. You had a couple of guys that were still kind of coming to grips with this car on a road course, but for the most part, everybody had clean running. A really good success story here for you guys. How about Oxford, though, next week? A very different racetrack from anything else on the schedule. The closest would be Langley. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I've even turned laps at Oxford. I'd have to look. But that's kind of been my forte, is just learn a track quickly and go from there. I feel like if I sit and practice and just practice and practice, I end up overthinking it and stop just letting natural reactions take over. So for me, it's better to not have too much practice. Just get used to it, get a car that drives decent, kind of go from there.
Absolutely, there is such a thing as too much practice. Zach, congratulations. Not the position you wanted, but P2 has got to feel pretty good still. Good run for you. We'll see you next week in Oxford.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night and a happy Thanksgiving to you and everybody watching as well.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Zach Shucker keeping the holidays in mind. Tim George down in 3rd place. Bit of a different story for him. He wasn't one of the top 2 out front all night long. Wasn't even one of the top 3 when Levine was out ahead of him, but he did best that 59 car when it was all said and done. In a really interesting battle. The last couple of laps, you guys were back and forth, side by side a little bit. Eventually, what was it that got you the position over David?
I think it was pitting a lap later than him. I think the tire wear just set it a little bit harder than he thought it was going to. With me pitting the lap after he did, that extra lap that he did, I think he abused his tires a little bit too much. And after I came out of pit lane, I saw I had an 8-second gap, so I just put it on cruise control till that competition caution came out. I think that's what did it for me there.
Good run for you here today. That, of course, helps make sure that the race that was dropped last week at Bristol, or I guess 2 weeks ago at Bristol, stays dropped, right? Every good result helps nullify those bad results. Do you feel like you're going to be in this points battle for a long time with David, just trying to points race, make sure you don't have any bad results, make sure those drops stay as those drops?
Yeah, this race definitely helped as far as points drops go. I'd like to forget about Bristol. That was not a very good night for me, but definitely, I think I'll be able to stay somewhere near the top of the point standings for this season. Hopefully I'll be able to beat David out in the points, but we'll see what the future races bring for us.
Well, regardless, with this format this season, you have got the edge. You've got the most wins. We'll see if that keeps up. Tim, good to talk to you. Hopefully we're talking to you next week in Maine.
I'll look forward to it, Andrew.
Oxford Plains next up for these drivers. Let's take a look at that schedule as a whole. That's the wrong one again. There we go. We've got two gray buttons for schedules on the controls, but this is the right one, of course. Lucky Motorsports Street Stocks going to Oxford next week, November 28th. Oxford Plains, of course, up there in Oxford, Maine, a pretty special place to go racing. And it's out to Iowa, Lanier Dirt, and Lanier the rest of this calendar year in 2023. Some really interesting racetracks in there, some really fun racetracks for sure, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch these guys continue to go at it. Back on some short tracks. Oxford next week, I think, is going to be kind of that classic short track racing format. A little bit of a different story at Iowa. Going to be a bit of a super speedway for these guys. Really, really fast track, but I think it's going to take a lot of finesse. It's not going to be a pack race by any means. It's going to be a little more akin to maybe Auto Club Speedway for NASCAR Cup and Xfinity drivers. Maybe even Michigan. I think more of Auto Club, that kind of race for these street stocks at Iowa. Should be a lot of fun these next few weeks, especially as we head to that dirt race, December 12th. Of course, everything here is subject to change. Thanks for tuning in this evening. It, of course, is a pleasure as always. Let's take a look at what's upcoming here at Pit Stop TV. Next up, we're off for the rest of this holiday week. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy it with your family. Make sure to eat plenty of good food. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, that's okay. Just have some good food anyways. And enjoy some time maybe in as the world, at least the northern hemisphere, cools down a little bit. If you're in the southern hemisphere and you're watching, hey, go out, enjoy the warming up, I suppose, of the seasons. But next up, we're in action with Oran Park Raceway on November 27th. That's SimLab Production Car Challenge action brought to you by Barber Ford. Then we're back racing with these guys at Oxford Plains Speedway next week, Tuesday evening, November 28th. Should be a lot of fun from that circle-shaped oval. And then we've got GT3 racing making a return to the platform. We head out to Charlotte Motor Speedway for Media Day for the North American Racing League, brought to you by IRS, not the Internal Revenue Service, but Infinite Racing Setups. Once again, thanks for tuning in. It has been a pleasure as always. A big shout out to our partners, of course, Elevated Performance, bringing you these broadcasts alongside Lucky Motorsports Solutions. Also, shout outs belong to Whiplash Simcams, ATVO, CC's Business, and more. No Zach Murders in the booth this week. Hopefully we get him back for next week in Oxford at some point. Of course, we'll get him on the racetrack, but otherwise, a big thank you to In Audio, ATVO, Whiplash Simcams, OBS, and iRacing.com, making these broadcasts possible behind the scenes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next time we're out, next time we're racing. It's Oxford. Otherwise, join us at Oran Park the day prior. November 27th, we've got more racing coming to you here on Pit Stop TV. We'll see you there.